So I guess we can try to get started.
Already?
Yeah, ready? So good evening, everyone. My name is Willie Pope, and I'm one of the assistant directors for the Center for Multicultural Advancement and Student Success. And I will be your host for this evening's celebration. So we're
Woo-hoo.
here. Yes, thank you. Everyone looks great. I mean, I'm so excited to see everyone. I mean, this is just a beautiful sight. So we're here to celebrate 10 years of advocacy, community, and culture, and over 50 years of legacy with our founding support programs, SABS, BCP, URLC, and NAS. So I'm just kind of going through some housekeeping things. Um, so this event will be recorded and available for viewing at a later date. By participating in this event, you are given consent to be in part of the recording for this session. Um, so basically tonight, just a quick overview, kind of rundown of what you can expect. We'll have a warm welcome from CMASS Director Wilma Crespo, and also from Assistant Vice Chancellor of Advocacy and Inclusion, Dr. Shelley Perdermo. Then we will transition into Professor Bracy providing us a little historical perspective, jump into our alumni perspectives. They'll share their stories of their involvement with the various programs. Um, and then we'll have an opportunity to go into break rooms to kind of really further engage with one another and just build some more community that way. And then we'll come back, have a share out, and then closing remarks by Dr. Rolanda Burney. And so with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to our director, Wilma Crespo.
Thank you, Willie, and buenas noches, mi gente. It's really good to see so many of you, so many familiar faces. And so it's really an honor to be here. Good evening, everyone, my fellow alum-to-be, faculty, staff, and friends. It is my distinct honor to welcome you to this virtual celebration. And in these unprecedented times, your presence is humbling. It is my hope that all of you and your loved ones are in good health and in the best of spirits. I want to say many thanks to the staff and colleagues that have assisted in creating this space for us to acknowledge legacy, advocacy, community, and culture. I would like to highlight the dynamic team of CMASS staff. Willie Pope, you heard from him. Chona, you want to wave? Michelle, Doris, Oshia, Sierra, and Marwa. I'm not sure if she's in the room, but she's a wonderful staff as well, and I want to highlight also. And I also want to highlight our amazing colleagues that made this possible in the Alumni Association, Megan Hoya, Melanie Cosgrove, and Karen Battistoni. Thank you so much. And many thanks as well to our administrators for joining or participating in this program. And very special thanks to the speakers that will share their insights and their experiences as undergraduate students or staff of the Committee for the Collegiate Education of Black and Other Minority Students, the Bilingual Collegiate Program, the United Asia Learning Resource Center, and the Native American Student Services. We could not celebrate CMASS without acknowledging the pivotal role these programs had in paving the way for access, retention, and graduation of students of color, first generation to college, and low-income students. This remarkable history and trajectory has been documented by undergraduate fellows, and with the assistance of the Public History Department, we launched it yesterday on the CMASS 10th anniversary homecoming page. So I encourage you to check it out and contribute to it as you're able to. You should also know that most of our current staff of CMASS had direct ties to the support programs. Some of us were exposed to the promise of higher education through the recruitment strategies. Some of us were exposed to a home away from home through their care. Some of us found a place, a home in their guidance and support that was so needed to thrive at the university. And while we operate under the name of CMASS, we do so in recognition that we are SEBS, that we are BCP, that we are UALRC and NAS. And it is our hope that our alumni of these programs view CMASS in this light as well. To learn more about the work CMASS has been doing, I encourage you to check out the videos staff created to showcase the programs and services we offer to continue to support in the development of our students, their retention, and their post-graduation plans of undergraduate students of diverse racial and socioeconomic backgrounds. And you can also find this video in the homecoming page. This week, as Willie mentioned, is also the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the W.E.B. Du Bois Department of Afro-American Studies. As you know, Afro-Am is a beacon of academic excellence and social consciousness. And I'm glad to say that Jim Smathers and I, Jim is the interim chair of the department, have plans to meet on campus in a couple of weeks from now to plant a tree in celebration of these milestones. So the next time you're on campus, make sure to stop by and take a picture. I hope you enjoyed tonight's program and the opportunity to learn and reminisce with one another. The ripple effects of your presence and your wisdom can and will reach farther than you think. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wilma, for those kind words. And now we will hear from Dr. Shelly Perdomo.
Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you're at in the country or state, or, you know, it's so good to see everyone. I do recognize a lot of wonderful familiar faces and some new faces, so welcome. My name is Shelly Perdomo Ahmed, and I serve as Assistant Vice Chancellor to our Advocacy, Inclusion, and Support programs in Student Affairs. And I'm also a proud alum of the College of Education here at Umass. And I have the pleasure of providing a few opening remarks. I promise they'll be quick because I think folks really want to hear from our alums. And so before I actually share with you the few important remarks I'm going to say, I definitely want to reiterate what Wilma said, particularly around the acknowledgement and congratulations to our W.E.B. Du Bois Afro-American Studies Department. They're celebrating 50 years, and they're going to be conducting a virtual symposium, and I want to encourage all of you, if you could, to certainly join and check out the program that's available online. And I also want to give a shout out to Dr. John Bracey and all the faculty of Afro-Am, because as you know, many SEBs and many of our programs would not be if it wasn't for our ancestors, but also our faculty like John Bracey, Miss Lucy, Jose Bo, all of them are going to get an opportunity to talk today. And of course, our colleagues from the Native American program as well. So with that said, I want to take this opportunity because I'd like to dedicate this celebration to our alumni. You know, with the passing of each decade and each class, our alumni have made significant contributions to not only protect and advance the progress, but also address the concerns of historically underrepresented groups here at UMass Amherst. As lifelong members of the UMass community, you have taught us to model courageous leadership and advocate for social justice and equality. Some, you know, particularly during some incredibly difficult and challenging times. You have also taught us and modeled what intersectional solidarity and coalition building looks like to create systemic change here at UMass. You continue to work to ensure that university takes the proper and the appropriate steps towards a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable university for our students. And you also leave our current students with a legacy of responsible social activism and getting into good trouble, as the late and great John Lewis said. Because of this and so much more, I offer my gratitude to our alumni and of course our faculty and staff. Without your support, CMASS would not be here celebrating 10 years. I hope that in the near future, we will have the opportunity to gather and celebrate as a UMass family. In the meantime, I want to encourage you to stay connected to UMass, to the cultural centers, to our departments, and certainly our staff and faculty, which I know many of you already do. I also want to take this opportunity to make a pitch for our Umass Connect mentorship program through our Alumni Association. Our colleague, Melanie Gosgrove, apologies, Melanie, if I messed up your last name, is going to talk a little bit more about how you can connect with our current students and if you're interested, engage in a mentorship opportunity there. So before I conclude, I want to take this opportunity to certainly thank our CMASS staff, our Cultural Center students and staff, our colleagues from the UMass Alumni Association for your support with the planning of this celebration, our colleagues from the Department of Public History, and certainly our colleagues and faculty in the Department of Afro-Am, our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs and Campus Life, Dr. Brandy LeBanc, who's new to us and joins us here, has been here for a few months, and certainly Dr. Rolanda Burney, who's our Chief of Staff for the Chancellor. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Willie so that you can transition us to the next segment of the program. Thank you.
Thank you for those inspiring words. Definitely, it definitely has hit on all the aspects that, reason why we're here. So now I would like to turn the next part of the program over to a person who really doesn't need an introduction. I'm pretty sure everyone knows, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, Professor John Bracey, who will give us a historical perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that just means that I've been around too long, that's all. It was one way of looking at it. Willie's given me 5 minutes to give you the history of the origins of the support program. So I might take 5.5, maybe 6. When I came here in 1972 to help build up the Du Bois Department. And when I got here, SEBS had already been established in 1968 with this small number of Black faculty, Randolph Romery, Bill Darity, Larry Johnson, Ed Driver in sociology, and William Julius Wilson were the main figures. And they had to go get a grant because the university didn't want to support the program, So they went out and got a Ford Foundation grant that would fund the scholarships for a recruiting and support program for African-American students and other minority students. And so the first class came in 1968. So when I got here in 1972, it was the first senior year of the next class of 1968. What was happening in this university, like everywhere else, was that after the death of Martin Luther King, you had massive social unrest all across the country. And the number of African-American grad student undergrads jumped from 100,000 total in 1966 to 300,000 plus in 1968, which is to say that the response to the urban unrest was to get everybody out of their city and onto a campus somewhere, And the ability to get money to recruit students was tied to that. I think it's going to happen again with the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. Pay these kids to do something other than give us a headache. And so there'll be a lot of scholarship money coming. And because they'd rather have you in school than running up and down the street, shutting down places and making them do things they don't want to do. So when I came to UMass, you were in the middle of this kind of furor, because the students that were being recruited were not recruited because they had the highest grade point averages or that they were the brightest in their class. They recruited people who were leaders, people who were activists, people who had a name in their community, people who were recommended by people in their community, regardless of what their high school teachers might have said about them, or what the police department might have said about them, or what the local mayor might have said about them. So I'm walking onto a campus with this tremendous amount of student kind of fervor, like something was going on every day. And what I liked about it was that New Africa House, everybody was in there. It said New Africa House, but the BCP was in there at the time, tiny group of Native American students. You had the Asian students who were organized by a student of mine from the University of Rochester, Doris Chen. Doris Chen came in 1973 and looked around and came to my office and said, "Where are the Asian students?" I said, "I have no idea." She went door to door in the dorms, knocking on doors, finding Asian students, and called them all out. And she said, "I don't want no bananas, no yellow on the outside, white on the inside." She said, "I want some shown up Asians." she went and got Bob Suzuki out of the School of Education, and Bob was making like he wasn't Asian. She said, no, come on, you Japanese, come on out of there, and made him be the advisor to the Asian American students. He got so fired up, he left UMass and went to California. I said, where you going, Butch? I'm going home to my people. I said, what people are those? He said, you know, I'm Japanese. I said, no kidding. You know, I thought you were always Japanese. But he was, you know, he grew up in a concentration camp, so he had that survival denial thing. So you had students who were generating this kind of activity. The person that got me interested in the Native students was actually Josephine White Eagle, who, I don't know how she found me, but before that, there were a couple of Native students, Cynthia Whirlwind Soldier, who was Lakota, who just kind of walked into my office one day and said that the creator told me that you would help me. And I'm saying, I didn't get anything today, but I'll take your word for it. And she wanted me to help her get travel funds to South Africa. So I begged some money out of the grad school, and she went to South Africa. And then Josephine White Eagle came shortly after that. And same kind of thing. She walked in my office and said, like, I need help. I said, help doing what? She said, I'm trying to organize a center for Native students, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of support for it. And I said, well, you know, I'll help you. Whatever you want me to do, just ask me to do it. And so I would, you know, kind of go behind her and holler at people, because she was a very nice, gentle person, didn't holler at people and tell them, give them what they want. And then I didn't know she was sick, but the last word she kind of said to me was, she said, when I'm not around, take care of the Native students for me. And I kept saying, well, okay. You know, I mean, I didn't know that she was saying goodbye. I mean, it was just a weird thing. And so from that kind of point on, I've had this kind of commitment to support Native students, because that's what I promised Josephine White Eagle I would do. So when Joyce came, Vincent came and asked me to teach a class on Native Americans, African Americans. He said, okay, if you want support for the powwow, okay. If you need help in, setting up the bleachers or whatever, setting up tables, and okay, you do whatever's necessary, because that's the population that has the least support and needs the most support, and they don't have the numbers, and you can't get the numbers without the support. You don't get the support without the numbers. And so I was always in the middle of this. And of course, BCP started off in New Africa. I was Jose, and then we were all much younger then. And they got their own space, so they could make all that kind of noise when they wanted to make noise. Otherwise, they were all in the basement of New Africa House. So the place was just a kind of intersectional kind of forever. Nobody had an ideology about that. You just assumed that people of color should look after each other. I mean, nobody had to make a speech about it. I mean, it never occurred to anybody to stand up and demand that people get along. It's like there weren't that many of us. Like if we didn't get along, we'd be in serious trouble. The other thing about the Asian kids is that I knew Yue Kuchiyama from the Black Liberation Movement. She's a legend. She's absolutely a legend. And her niece, Judy Toyama, worked in the student affairs. And talking about two opposites. Judy was so far away from Yue Kuchiyama, you couldn't believe it. But Yue sent her granddaughter to UMass, Akimi Latson, again, took a class with mine and said, my grandmother said, take your class. And I said, like, who are you? She said, my grandmother's Yue Kuchiyama. I said, sit down, front row, So there are connections that were already there. There are connections that aren't artificial. You didn't have to go around and say, I think I should connect with other minorities. You kind of grew up with them, grew in and out of them, and they were kind of a part of you. And I think this campus is kind of unique in that, because if you go to like the Pacific Coast or maybe New York City, the different groups fight each other, and so they get less. On this campus, if you stay together, you can get more, because that way you can't pass it around to other people, because everybody knows what everybody else is getting, So, I mean, unification helps. And that's been the history of this campus over the 40 years I've been here, like almost 50 years now. And I think we ought to hold on to that. I wasn't so sure about the transition from SEBS to UMass. I like SEBS being right below me, so the kids could just walk up and get advice. I like being able to send them down to SEBS if they had a problem, get some counseling and advising. But on the other hand, I like the idea that the Center for Women and Community is there because they're safer. you know, like I told them when they moved in, because they had all kind of security, all this kind of stuff. I said, look, you know, if anybody comes up thinking they're gonna jump on you in your Africa house, you call us first, then call 911. You know, and hope the police get here in time to save who it is. Because nobody in their right mind is gonna walk in our building and hit nobody. You know, and they can stand out in the parking lot and holler about their girlfriend or whatever, but don't be coming in the building and say you're gonna punch them out, because it is not gonna happen. You know, and so I think that they're physically safer, and I think that's good. You know, that's good. The other place they had all these locks and double locks and triple locks and all that stuff. And that's not the way you should live. You shouldn't live locked up on a campus, you know. And so the history of the support programs is a history of people pulling together to move forward. A history of, not that we're all the same, because we're not the same. And not that we don't have differences, because if we were the same people, we wouldn't have to be allies. We'd be the same person. Allies are people that you move with who are going in their direction and you agree with their program. Not that they have your program, they have their program. And you agree to support each other's program. And that's what's unique about this campus. And that's what I liked being here for the 40 years, that I didn't have to negotiate fights between Puerto Rican kids and African-American kids. You know, you didn't have, you know, bitter kind of knockdown, drag out things, you know, like, well, who are Asian students and so forth, to why they hear this kind of crap. You know, deep respect for the Native American population. Like, you know, we on their land. You know, like this is not ours. We all on stolen property here, and we just have to deal with that. You know, I mean, we're not leaving anytime soon, but we have to acknowledge that this is not ours. This is not ours. You know, we do. You know that justice would mean to give it back. You know, but nobody's going to do that anytime soon. But you should acknowledge at least that it's on loan. It's on loan to you for some people who it still belongs to. You know, nobody bought it from them. They don't have any deeds. They don't have any bills of sale. You know, and so once we get that straight, then we can move as allies through the rest of the experience here. And that's about all. One last thing, I'm teaching Native Americans, African Americans again in the spring, because I can't keep track of anybody with this COVID thing. So I figured the only way to find the Native students is teach a class, and maybe a couple of them will show up so I can find out what's going on with them. That's one way to do it. And also in terms of the tree, I like to bring some dirt from back in New Africa House when you plant the tree. We did this for Dovey when Dovey, there's a tree for Dovey Afasi at Greenfield Community College, where he retired when he passed away. And they get beautiful American maple tree. And I said, you know, we started the Umass. You got to have some New Africa House dirt up in there. You just can't be planting with some Greenfield dirt. So I took a couple of jars of dirt from out back in New Africa House, and they, you know, they were real nice about it. They had a separate ceremony and mixed it in with the Greenfield dirt so that Dovey could grow, you know, the tree would grow like straight. And I think that's true if you're going to have a tree over there for CMASS. So CMASS tree got to have some New Africa House dirt at the roots. So that you're thinking, like, you know, if it ain't black at the root, it's not going to grow straight. Everybody knows that, right? That's the best dirt in the world is black dirt, you know. So I'm going to bring y'all what will pass for black dirt, because there's no black dirt in this part of the world. And that's kind of where I am. I could go on, as you know, I could go on for hours, but that just came out of my other conference. And so I'm at this one. So I will stop now. And again, you know, if you need me, call me for anything. You know, I haven't gone anywhere yet, you know, and I can't get out of the house. So you know where I am. And you know, glad to be here, glad to be part of this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that historical perspective. You really, you know, setting the tone and really setting the direction of the purpose of this event together, bring everybody together and across generations, right? So that we can benefit from our collective efforts. So now I just kind of really want to kind of briefly kind of read some of the founders of the support programs, just to mention them kind of real quickly for you. For SEBS, we have Dr. Randolph Bromry, Dr. Edwin Driver, Dr. Lawrence A. Johnson, Dr. William Julius Wilson, Dr. William Darty, and Dr. James White. For the bilingual collegiate program, what we have on record are Dr. Benjamin Rodriguez and Dr. Gloria Guevara. For the United Asian Learning Resource Center, we have Dr. Lucy Nguyen. and for the Native American Student Support Services. From what I understand is the students support that moved that forward, and Renee Lopes was the first director of the program as well. And you will be hearing from her as well. Great. So now we're transitioning to our stories from our alumni perspective. And our first speaker is Mr. Sid Ferreira. Sid is currently the Special Assistant to the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and Campus Life. Sid was born in Cape Verde, but immigrated to New Bedford at the age of 14. He attended New Bedford High School and then completed his undergraduate and graduate degrees at Umass Amherst, where he was a proud member of the SEBS program. Besides his professional career as an educator, he is an advocate for diversity and inclusion for underrepresented communities in higher education. For those who are marginalized in our society, he focuses on issues of racism, ableism, gender discrimination, sexism, classism, and other forms of oppression. Besides his work at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Sid is also a member of the Human Rights Commission and Housing Trust for the town of Amherst. He is also a co-residential director of the Better Chance, the ABC program, a Better Chance program, a program that serves underrepresented males that come from underserved and underfunded high schools from the Northeast region and other parts of the US that to attend Amherst High School. Without any further ado, Sid Ferreira.
Let me get myself off mute. Thank you, Willie. You know, it's how you guys gonna have me go after Bracy? I have no idea, because that's like a disservice to myself, right? But Professor Bracy, always amazing, and it's a honor to come after you. You know, and thank you for that historical background, because I think it's important. And there's some current students who are here on the Zoom call. I know that they're here, and it's important for them to know that historical background on how the support that they so, you know, they are benefited from these days comes from way back in 1968 and way before that, but more organized in 1968. So, as Willie said, Sid Ferreira, I've been at Umass for a little more than 2 years, plus another 31. So do your math, and proud member of the SEBS program, as I said. But I you know, I got to give due where it's due. I came in as a BCP student, and I told folks that Jose Ball was my first academic advisor. So he was my introduction to the support programs. And afterwards, a bunch of Cape Verdeans were up in SEBS, and I said, okay, I'm going to SEBS. And then there was this guy who was Cape Verdean also. His name was Paul Barros. You know, he was the director then, and I said, okay, I'm going to SEBS. And I want to say that SEBS, BCP, ULSC, NAS, because then end up working with all these folks, you know, it became that home away from home, right? Don't forget that in the 80s, when we came to UMass, there wasn't a lot of us, you know. There was very, very, very few of us, and most of us were males. There was not a lot of females on this campus. So we had to find that niche where, you know, we would get the answers that we needed, right? And those answers, to tell the truth, started at the onset. I remember getting on campus, and right away there was this gentleman. His name is Sam. I forget Sam's last name, but Sam was Dominican. And Sam came up to me and was like, "Yo, you're Sid Ferreira, right? Clovis's brother, and friends with Gus Martin's. Hey, I'm going to take care of you, and you come in through BCP. But I also got to tell you about SEBS program." So from the get-go, orientation, you know, what they used to say, snatch you up, right? So they would snatch you up and say, this is how this is run at UMass. And this is what you need to do to be successful at UMass. And the first day that I got on campus, I remember in September, we all went to the Horseshoe, right? And that's where everybody was at, right? Because Malcolm X Cultural Center was the place where everybody hung out, right? Besides the New Africa House. But the first day everybody would go there. But remember, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have anything. So we had these little phone books, and everybody's like, take my name, take my number. You need anything, you give me a call, right? So that was that family that really, really supported us on our way through UMass. And SEBS became that place, as BCP became that place for a lot of our students who are bilingual and or Latino students, ULRC and NAS, right? And I'm so grateful, because if it wasn't for SEBS, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, right? Everything that I do today, I emulate from the folks that I learned from the SEBS program, BCP, RRC, and all these other folks. Dr. Nguyen is on this call. I call it Auntie 7, which is an honor for me to call it Auntie 7, and Dr. Benjamin Rodriguez. There's Paul Barrows. There was all of these what we call the old heads, and they were our mentors, besides the folks from the Afro-Am program, right? So we would go upstairs. SEBS was on the second floor in New Africa House, and then we had access to all of these brilliant minds upstairs, starting with, of course, Professor Bracy that you guys just heard from, and, Professor Terry, Professor Thelwell, Professor, Dovia Fessi, which I took a class with. It was amazing. There were so many folks that we had access to that really kept us on the straight and narrow. And when I tell you straight and narrow, sometimes it was tough love, right? Tough love, like this is the expectation, and you guys will do this, right? But we really understood where they were coming from, because they're the ones who had walked the path that we were going to walk, right? And so congratulations, first of all, to CMASS for being here 10 years, right? Because I know that, it takes time to put some of these pieces together. So congratulations, I forgot to say that at the beginning, all right? But I want to say that through SEBS, that's give me so many ways of networking. Networking is the best thing that you guys can get out of programs such as CMASS, SEBS, BCP, LRC, right? Is because of networking. SEBS we started CVSA through SEBS. I know there's a couple of folks here for our Cape Verdean Student Alliance members, alumni, and it was all because of SEBS, Paul Barrows and John Lopes. For some of you folks here know the name. They were like, we need to put a program together, right? So that we can get a group for Cape Verdean students on this campus. And out of that, that's where the African Student Association came out of BCP, the Dominican, Casa Dominicana came out of, so these supports that we now have on campus is due to the support programs, right? And I want to say that through SEBS, I also got to meet some amazing people. Again, the networking, right? I can give you guys a list, Dr. Janetta Cole. I took a class with James Baldwin, because Professor Brace is like, you have to take this class, right? So there I go. And I tell people that James Baldwin was so powerful that his TAs were Professor Bracy, Professor Strickland, Professor Thelwell, the two Terrys, right? Because, that man was just brilliant. Chinua Achebe, Max Roach, Paulo Fieri, Pearl Primus, those are the people, and many other folks that I met through the SEBS program and the Afro-Am, because Afro-Am and SEBS were like, connected at the hips, right? So for all the students who are on this call, right, make sure that you utilize the resources that you have on this campus. Make sure you utilize CMASS. All of these folks who are here, they're amazing people. I've worked with all of them, Willie, Michelle, Shona, I see Ophelia. Me and Ophelia been working together since 1987. I know some of you guys weren't born yet. Don't make me feel that old. All right. So, Wilma, right? Doris Clemens. These are all folks who, have worked, have put their blood and life on the line for a lot of us to be where we are today. So utilize them, make sure that you give them their thanks. Make sure that once in a while you call them for the alumni and check on them, all right? And say, hey, I'm still here, I'm doing well. We like to hear the really nice stories of how our alumni are doing, because that networking piece, that's what this is all about, right? It's about connecting you, the new ones, with the older heads, because you alumni are now older heads. So we want to connect you with these young folks. Please let us know where you at. Please tell us your good stories. Please stay in touch. Please connect with the folks who, had a hand in success. And props again to CMASS. Props to Perdomo, who's running the show here. Props to Professor Brady, props to Vice Chancellor Bank, and props to, Rolanda Burney, who have done some amazing work. And, have Teresa Cardozo here, who's in the Dean of Students office. Our Dean of Students is also here on this call. She's brand new to the campus. So Evelyn, welcome to our campus. And these are amazing people that you're getting to know. And I hope that you connect with them. And for everyone, great to see you. Stay well, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you in another 5 years, because in 20 years, hopefully I'll be in Cape Verde just chilling. All right, so I'll Zoom you guys from Cape Verde for the next 20 years. All right, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. Appreciate you. Thanks.
All right. Thanks very much, Sid. I think you hit it right on the nail on the head when the saying, it takes a village to support everyone, and everyone has a responsibility, right? And that's what that community, that bringing people together, that love, and just support. I felt the same way. Sid was one of my academic advisors. Jose Bo took me under his wing and said, and like Sid said, yo, they were like, listen, this is what you got to do, and you're either gonna do it or you're not. So Jose didn't play. But so now we're just gonna have a little bit. I know people are doing the chat, and that's great. I love to see it. We're gonna have a little bit of interaction. So we have these trivia questions. I'm gonna put up a question for you and just answer. We want you to answer and put it into the chat. Hold on 1 second. I'll share my screen. Hold on. Sorry.
Show the answer, Willie.
Sorry about that. That was a gimme, right? I'll give you one.
A test.
There it is. I'll give you one. So just enter your answers into the chat. And I will stop sharing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ooh, Melinda got the right answer.
Well, everyone should have got the right answer.
I guess she was the fastest to type it.
And can I add something about the right answer? I
Yes.
just want to let folks know that this past semester, a resolution was passed by our Board of Trustees with the support of lots of people on this campus, specifically Professor Bracy and others, to name our Fine Arts Center after Dr. Randolph Bromley. So once this pandemic is over, we will have a celebration, a formal celebration to get the name, for Dr. Bromley. So the Fine Arts Center will become known as Bromley Hall, for example. All right, so really, really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Awesome. A lot of great people have paved the way for us. So we just have to continue to carry the torch. So now we're going to move on to our next speaker, next alumni, Ms. Vera Duanimi Cage. Vera is the Associate Director of an Adult Day Health Care Center in Hadley and volunteers as the Vice President of Amherst Media, a public access station embarking on a capital campaign to build a new state-of-the-art public access station home. She is also the chair of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Asian American Commission. A resident of Amherst, where she lives with her husband and 2 teenage children, Vera serves on the town meeting, Amherst School Committee, and in 2016 became the first Lao American to run for state representative in Mass. So without further ado, turn it over to Vera.
Thank you so much, Willie. It's great to be here with everyone. Did you want to prompt me with the question? Was this is about my experience with the United Asia Learning Resource Center, correct, Willie?
Yes.
Okay. And I am so pleased to see Dr. Nguyen here with us. I owe her, I guess, my experience, my life, for her contributions and presence at the campus. I guess I'm emotional because a lot of the programs and activities and all the people that sacrificed for students like myself to be able to enter the door, I don't take that lightly. And I want to thank all those people who opened the doors and paved the way and contributed so much. When I got the call to come to the University of Massachusetts, it was one of Dr. Nguyen's staff member, Chantabong, who's still at the university in advising. And I was surprised to get a call. You know, I was in Dorchester and I get this call and she was Lao, I'm Lao. And I thought that was a nice touch, you know, to encourage me to attend and to pledge her support for my success on campus. So I want to say that is one of the most important things these academic support programs have done for the university, is to be able to recruit and to retain and to support, you know, the students that are there. So the other, I think, attraction that I had to the university, because I was a little bit ambivalent about where I was going to go. You know, I saw on the local news, it was Liz Walker. You know, I'm from Boston, so Liz Walker was the big reporter in my hometown, and she was at the Amherst campus, University of Massachusetts Amherst campus, and she was interviewing campus activists, people like Student Government Association president at the time, David Nunez. You know, we had a trustee, a student trustee, an African-American student, you know, and so it was just I think the campus was coming off of this, these protests, or it was just this activism that really attracted me. And it made me want to join SGA, become a senator, join Third World Caucus, or the Alana Affairs Caucus, be a senator for my dorm cans, and just be really active. And I think that to a degree, you know, I prioritize the extracurricular stuff, the you know, being a part of the student organizations. It taught me a lot about leadership and working with other people, and the type of programming that we were able to produce as students, and to work in coalition with other, like in a multiracial coalition, working collaboratively was just phenomenal. And I think that we took that, that's something I think that needs to be modeled off campus, you know, and so we did it really well during the years that I was a part of the campus. So I entered in 1993. I spent a lot of time on campus, and then I went to work professionally in DC, and then I came back to finish out my bachelor's degree requirements, and then entered a master's program on campus. But I'm really, you know, I think while I was there at the university, when I heard And so part of my, and please let me know how much time I have left too, but one of the important aspects of how it helped me was the being able to do independent studies with a professor or with a faculty member or a sponsor. And so Dr. Lucy Nguyen was that person that was able to work with students like myself. And so I think there was a handful of us who got together, and it was our independent study that created in Dwight, there was the Asia Student Interest Residential Program for Asian American students and other students who wanted to be in that space. We also wanted to, pushed for the establishment of an Asian American Studies major program. And what we have now is the certificate program. And it was people like, who's now a professor, I think in UCLA, Dr. Lucy Burns, who was a grad student at the time, who really took the interest of the students and went with it and really organized other people to at least offer courses and all those things. And I think it's helpful to know that the people who were coming through these academic support programs like myself, we were also working in other parts of the campus, community. And so for example, like, New World Theater, some of us were involved with Roberta Uno's, legacy in terms of how she was able to, gauge our interest and keep us motivated and going and educated. Like the keywords were like decolonizing your mind, and it was like older students mentoring younger students about, and just sharing their experiences with, for example, when I went in, it was that older students who were like, we did the takeover in Memorial Hall, and so when in the winter of '94, it was like, the admissions building occupation that we did for a few hours, to press that the university to, that we don't increase fees on students. And in '97, I was part of the Goodell takeover. So for me, it was important to pay homage to people who opened the doors for me by being able to fight and push for my younger brothers and sisters to be able to, get into the university and be successful as well. So, and I've been a part of the campus community, and it, to see how the support programs got decimated and, it morphed into a different, entity. It's sad to see directors, lose their positions and their jobs, and, and so I think that leaves a void, and I don't believe has, a hole that actually cannot be filled, and so I'm saddened by that. But I also I feel hope. I have hope that there will always be cycles of, people who are, will come in and do stuff that can effect change. And part of it is, I think the problem in my estimation is that, once we as a university, start prioritizing out-of-state students, for example.
So we have about 30 seconds, Rhea.
Yeah, sure. So when we prioritize, students who may come in, who from a more middle-class experience, for example, that might affect the, sort of the activities that are happening, on the ground, on the campus. And so I think we've lost a lot. I think the Goodell takeover, if you look at the state legislature side, I think David Scott, Chancellor Scott at the time, got a lot of heat Jeff Jacoby, you know, was a Globe columnist, and he, you know, attacked us a lot. And I don't see, you know, I see that potential now that we have friends on the state level that can turn things around. So let me just pause there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vera, for your perspective. So we do have another question for you guys. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
No.
Not yet.
No.
Hold on one second.
All right.
Hold on. Hold on. Share. Hold on. Hopefully you,
Uh-oh, I heard you.
you heard me what?
You said something bad.
What? Hold on. And then I'm there, but it's not, okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Sorry about this, but it seems like I'm not getting to the right screen. Oh, I'll come back to that.
Yeah, let's move on.
Figure that one out.
That's okay.
All right. So our next speaker, Mr. Jose Bo.
Woo-hoo.
Hey, Mr. Infamous, Mr. Jose Bo.
Woo-hoo.
So, hi there. I put a timer because when you let me speak, I will stay forever talking. And I know that Wilma and you, Sidonio, my wife, Shelly, well, Shelly not that much because she doesn't criticize me that much, Chona, and I know that Lucy is here, so I'm gonna be very brief. And I have a timer on my phone. Number one, I am so happy to see your faces and to see you guys again. I really, really, really miss you guys. I miss the University of Massachusetts. Dr. Brazy, I want to thank you because what you said, it was in my heart. And I wrote something, but I don't think I'm even going to read it because you inspire me to those days. And I was just going to ask a question if you guys, the group allows me. What was the name of that lady? I think it was Yvonne that had the restaurant.
Oh, had the
in
restaurant,
Umass.
Yvonne John, yeah.
Yvonne John?
John.
Oh my God.
Yeah, from
I
Guyana.
have
yeah.
her book.
Yeah,
I have her book on recipes. And I said, did she pass away?
yeah, she passed away, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Her food was incredible. And I got to tell you something else. The New Africa House, for everyone on campus who was not a white person, it was our cultural center. We used to go there, argue, plan, have a good time, music. There was a life. And I got to tell you, I'm so happy that the BCP started there. But I wanted to thank you for bringing all of those memories. I also want to, maybe this is not the right time to do this, because I tell you, inside me, I'm so happy. But I also want to say that I've been so sad that Aquila Ayana passed away.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she was another leader at the University of Massachusetts. Let me tell you something. When I was a student, I became the president of AORA before you were born, 1979. In 1979, for some reason, the university radio station, they eliminated ¿Qué tal amigos?, our program. And we said, hell no. And this wasn't only about Latinos and Puerto Rican people listening to the radio station. It wasn't about that. It was about unity that Dr. Bracy was talking about before, and Sidonio and Willie. We weren't like, you Latino, you Asian, you Native, you Black. No, we're not. We are a group of people and we are united. And let me tell you something. That's why I am so happy that our programs did not dissolve. They became an umbrella. And that means that you brought unity back together at the university. And I want to thank CMASS for that. I'm going to check my timer because I know that, oh my God, I'm almost done, right? No?
You got about a minute left.
That's it?
2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes. I
So,
give you.
all right. So look, I didn't want to take, all my time for that, but I figured I had to mention that so many people at the University of Massachusetts that were great. I entered the university when I was going to Holyoke Community College. I was flying kites. I was teaching my kids how to make kites and fly them. There was these two guys that came looking at my kite and they went crazy. Heriberto Flores and Sidonio, never mind. Sotolongo, Hill Sotolongo. And they say, what did you learn how to do this? I said, I don't know, since I was a little kid, whatever. And then they introduced me. They said, do you go to college? I said, well, I'm taking classes at Holyoke Community College, but I want to transfer to UMass. I said, UMass, we have an outstanding program at the university, the BCP. And they took me there. They walked me through the financial aid office. I met people there that fill out the application and then fill out the admissions application, and they accepted me. I didn't even know. English is not my language. It wasn't never, and it will never be my language. So I said, because I don't speak a lot of English, maybe they will not accept me. Thank God that they did, and I met so many people. Wilma Crespo, I recruited her when she was, I think, 17, but she looked like she was 12 years old, like really tiny girl. And I said, oh, my time is up, but I'm sorry. And then I worked 18 years at the, after that, we took over the Whitmore, we took over the radio. We didn't take over, we took over the radio station, but we just did a demonstration because it's a federal law that you cannot do whatever. So we said, okay, we're going to take Whitmore. So we took Whitmore. And let me tell you something, women. A lot of people don't give credit to women. But when we were inside the Chancellor's office, the women were in front of Whitmore. And some of the people were ready to follow directions of what was the next plan. And the women, including, I remember, I don't know her name, but she was pregnant. And she lied down in front of Whitmore when the police cars were coming to arrest us. I just can't believe that kind of action happened. And there were Black, Native Americans, there were Asians, all of us Latinos. So, and then services, like Sidonio and Willie says, it's not like you're a USF student, go to CEF. No, get over here. And then we have Lucy Niem, who was, the Native American students were part of the BCP, and then we formed a program for Native Americans, and she was the director, but she was my door-to-door staff all the time. Anyway, if it wasn't for these programs, I would not be here, because that was one of my dreams, but because of my poverty, I will never be able to get to get money to pay for my school or anything like that. That's how I left Puerto Rico. I joined the military, the biggest mistake of my life. And I told all the students that I talked to, please do not join the military, just to go to the GI Bill and get it. So, and for the Vietnamese people, I am sorry that American people killed so many in Vietnam and they committed so many crimes. But the BCP was an outstanding program for me as a student. Then I worked 18 years. And then I became the director of the outreach program, which gave us open doors. And after the takeover of Whitmore, they gave us a scholarship, which I don't know who is controlling that scholarship now.
30 seconds.
Huh?
30 seconds.
All right, 30 seconds.
It's still in existence. It's in admissions, though. Your scholarship is in admission.
Well, we used to have, our programs used to control it. So I need to shut up because it's 30 seconds and I didn't read my speech. So I'm sorry if I didn't do a good job, but it's coming from my heart rather than anything else.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes, and that's what it's about, coming from the heart, talking about your personal experiences and the impact the programs had on each one of us, and how we carry that with us, and how it influences our decision making, and how we move forward, and how we would just want to give back to making sure that every student receives that same quality education, but also the support and guidance on letting them know that they're not alone in this process.
I love CMASS. I love CMASS.
Thank you very much.
And we used to have a group that played congas in the basement of the New Africa House, you remember?
All right.
The drum group. When y'all came through the window, the door was locked.
Yeah.
So now we'll have our next speaker, Ms. Renee Lopes, and I'm still trying to figure out our little questioning piece, but I'll figure that out and then we'll run with it. Renee? I think you're muted. You got to unmute yourself.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yes.
Good evening. I'm sitting here with my one of my granddaughters. This is Ari. We might have to throw her out, but right now she's being very patient. I'm happy to be a part of this, and so happy to see many of my mentors on this call as well. I started thinking about the topic that you'd given me, Willie, and just started running off a list of all the students that I'd worked with and all the professionals that I had worked with. And, you know, after about 10 minutes, I stopped writing. So my experience at UMass and specifically with SEBS was as a young mother. I had a 5-year-old daughter and a GED and 15 credits and a 4.0 on those 15 credits. And a wonderful woman came to my neighborhood and recruited me. Her name was Deirdre Almeida, American Horse. Deirdre was a graduate student. She worked at the UMass Amherst admissions office, and she had a goal to increase the numbers of Native students at the institution. Dee came to my house. She came to my neighborhood with her other Native families, and she recruited me. And she said, "You've done college." I said, "I just have a GED. I've got a kid. I can't do anything." And she said, "Well, you've got family housing. There are other Native students there. We'll take care of you." And she followed through on all of that from day one, the day I came up for the transfer orientation and signed up as a part of SEBS. I met with her. I met with Akil Ayana. And I met with a woman named Cynthia Whirlwind Soldier. And those 3 women just provided the backbone of my experience there. SEBS, as all of you know, has been many things to many people, but it was a real lifeline for me. Again, as a young mother, I had to negotiate childcare and housing with the famous UMass housing office, off-campus housing office. It was a lot of challenge, but at every turn, Cynthia was my advisor in SEBS, and she knew everything. She knew all of my needs as a Native woman and as a Native mother. I can remember probably the 3rd week of school. I was a little bit older. I was non-traditional, obviously, with the child, but I was probably 21. And she came to my house. She lived in family housing with me and her kids. And she said, "If I can do it, you can do it." And I was overwhelmed. I had, had to prepare how to study and learn how to do research. And I hadn't done any of that as a student who quit high school at 14. And she came over and she says, "You got to do laundry." And I said, "Yeah, well, we'll get to that." And she said, "No, we'll get to that now. Bring your books. My husband's got all the kids. Let's go." And she did things like that. She provided the extra little steps that I needed, helping with my child, getting my kid to school, doing my laundry, doing all the things that a traditional student, either had taken care of in-house that I didn't have as a non-traditional student. My experience at SEBS taught me so much. And I have to say, my hat's off to folks like Paul Barrows and Floyd Martin. Again, when I came there, my goal was to get a degree so I could support myself and my child. And before I left there, Floyd convinced me that I had to do a master's program and I had to keep going. The Native community was very small, But interestingly enough, if you grow up Native in this part of the country, Eastern Woodlands people, you know families from powwows and powwow trail and community gatherings and all those kinds of things. So though I didn't know my peers, I knew all their families. It was kind of like coming home whenever we gathered together. My second or third week of school, Deirdre said, we have to have a social, we have to get organized. I recruited 10 students and you're all gonna work. You're gonna work hard to make sure that, you know, we don't have to go through this every year, fighting the institution for funding and making sure that we could attend. And so she was like, get some groceries. We're all going to get some groceries. We're coming to your house. You've got a kitchen. And I was like, wait, I've got a little 1-bedroom over here. And she's like, it doesn't matter. We'll all fit. And we did. And we all fit. And everybody brought something. Be careful, Mama. Everybody brought something in terms of food and ceremonial medicines and things like that. And we gathered together and we started plotting from day one how we had enough in numbers, but we only had one graduate. We only had one graduate student in the institution at all, completely, and it was Deirdre. Shortly after that, we had Donna Goodleaf, who's now a professor up in Canada in her way in Gamawage. At any rate, we got organized, and I worked at SEBS as an advisor during the summers because I was there. We recruited students. And I'll never forget one of my students. Some of you may know him or have heard of him. His name is Greg Casimir. I don't know, John, if you remember him, or Sid, if you remember him. But Greg worked really hard. He was a Haitian student at SEBS. And I told him one day, I said, bring some of your friends. You know, you got to make sure and bring your friends and make sure everybody's getting the same kind of services. There was a way to get kids into classes that they couldn't get into. And we could always negotiate with Afro-Am studies folks, and they really helped us a lot. Anyway, Greg said to me, I said to Greg, each one's got to reach one. And he said, no, Renee, each one's got to reach more than one. Each one's got to reach 10. And that stuck in my brain because there were so few of us there.
I got to cut him off, so come here.
I want to talk a little bit about the Goodell takeover, because when our students, Sid and I call them our students because Sid and I worked really closely together, and we made sure that students understood social justice. We made sure that they understood that they had a right to be there and that they were capable of being there. I used to tell my students, if you got here, you can get through here. That's what Cynthia told me. That's what Deirdre told me. That's what John Bracey told me.
Grandma, what's this?
Honey, Grandma's busy right now. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm a full-time grandmother right now. At any rate, working with SEB students and making sure the Native students really felt empowered. When they began to take over Goodell, we talked about the things that they wanted and what could come of that. And we planned and plotted for months and months. And I say we, but it was the students with a little bit of leadership and some mentoring and some encouragement. Students knew what they needed to do. And so when they took over Goodell, out of that came a living document, and the living document instructed the administration about our specific needs and the things that we wanted and desired. And we were able to get those things. One of those things was that Native students had always been a part of SEBS, and SEBS was a home for us, but we didn't have some other additional things that we needed as Native people. So the NAS program came out of that. I was the first director of the NAS program, and the institution at the time was trying to really speak to the needs of a much neglected population. John mentioned at the beginning of this that, you know, the university is on Native American land. It's a land grant institution, which basically means that you have to have Native students on your campus and you have to support Native students. So one of the things that they allowed me to do was do research into all the other Native programs. Dee Almeida and Cynthia Warwin Soldier, Donna Goodleaf, myself, a woman named Sheena Brown, an Narragansett woman, we decided that it would be most effective if we looked at all the other successful Native programs on college campuses. And at the time, Umass Amherst was by far the only state institution that had services, even specific services for Native American students. Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Dartmouth and Dartmouth College and UMass Amherst became what was known as 5 Circle. 5 circles of support for Native students. Each one of those campuses had a program. And as I said, ours was the only state institution. So the university allowed myself and Sheena to travel around to review all these programs at these elite campuses that supported Native students. And what we learned is all the things that we knew that we already knew. For Native students to be successful, we needed community. We needed our elders to participate. It was very important for our Native students to feel like they had elders to talk to right there, that they didn't have to run home every time there was a crisis in one of our communities. And if any of you are paying attention to what's happening for Native America right now, there's a whole lot. And it's not just the Keystone Pipeline. We've got Mi'kmaq members in Nova Scotia who are fighting for lobstering rights. We've got Mashpee Wampanoag who are fighting to maintain their land rights. We have a lot of political problems that the world doesn't really want to talk about, as we are such a small population. But in that class of 10 that Dee Dee recruited, all those people were always behind us in making sure that we got what we needed. So it took us a year to develop the program. Included things like having a Native advisor. We worked really hard to get Native faculty on campus. We worked with all of our allies. I mentioned John already, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention people like Rick Towns and Emma Capoluzzo and Peter DeRico, who are all really strong allies of us. Josephine White Eagle came into the picture about a year after I got there, and this was before Goodell, and she just became the elder in residence for all of us. She would come to our homes. She would visit with us. She would always bring my kids strawberries and treats and talk to them about gardening and fishing and things like that. And they looked to her like a grandmother, as many of us did. So we wanted to include elders in residence. We needed safe space. We needed not just computer access, but we needed folks to work with our kids. Most of our Native students were coming from impoverished communities, communities where they were maybe the first or second in their family to leave their community, much less go to college. We had to ensure that Native students had jobs. Most of our students couldn't come to school if they didn't have jobs. And then the most important piece was that we maintained the cultural piece. My husband followed me up to school, and he supported me through the whole process. And he used to cook for our Native American Heritage Month and our socials and things like that.
About 30 seconds, Renee.
Thank you. We knew that we needed all of those things for students to be successful. And emergency assistance was a huge one. Help with financial aid in the bursar's office was another huge one. So through the advocacy skills that I had developed in working for SABS and getting to know so many people, and then researching all these really strong Native programs, we were able to develop something very comprehensive. Now, I understand that NASA's is no longer in existence since it's been taken under the leadership of CMASS. And although I'm excited to know that we still have Native staff and faculty there, and I still work very closely with folks like Michelle and other folks on campus whenever I need to reach out are still there. It's great, but we still need to remember the smallest minority population, which is Native American Indigenous students. And I just have to mention really quickly some of the names of my students that have graduated. If you think of them, look them up, because I tell you what, Deirdre did the university a huge service by recruiting all of us. Rodina Cave, she's a lawyer and she works recruiting Native students. I spent my entire professional work since leaving UMass working with Native students and sending them off to college. And the one thing I tell all students that I've sent off to college, find a campus that supports you. Find a campus that supports you as a Native person. I'm not sure that UMass Amherst recognizes how important they are to the Native community, but we recognize it. And all the Eastern Woodlands populations, from Narragansett and Shinnecocks to Wampanoags and Nipmunks, we still need the institution. We still expect that as a land-grant institution, it'd still be our home. I want to say thank you to John again, folks like Sonia Nieto, Nelson Acosta, Carol and Ophelia at SEBS were just, you know, they told it to you right and told it to you straight and made sure you did what you were supposed to do. Ron and Sherry Welburn. Ron is a faculty member in the English department for many years. I have a whole list of students I can't read. Joyce Vincent always made sure that, you know, we could still do powwow, that, you know, elders still had space. There's lots of needs still in our community, and there's lots of need for Native students on the UMass Amherst campus. So I look forward to seeing what CMASS has to do for the next 10 years. And I hope to be an integral part of what's happening for Indigenous and other people of color on the campus. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you. Great wisdom, great support, great history. So we're going to go to our last guest speaker, Mary Niem. Graduated from UMass in 2013 with her Bachelor's of Arts in Communication and a certificate in International Relations. During her time at UMass, she was a sister of Delta Psi Phi Multicultural Sorority Incorporated, a staff member at the YKCC, and a frequent face at CMASS because of all the amazing people who supported her during her 4 years. So I'll turn it over to Mary.
Thanks, Willie. I want to start with, I'm so happy to be here today. And I didn't get a chance to meet a lot of you, obviously, during my time at UMass. Sorry, Sid, I was born after 1987. Don't hate me too much. But just hearing all of your histories and all of your perspectives and the work that you put in. And I want to just basically give you the reassurance that those same themes of community and family were still so persistent during my time at UMass, and that attested to all of the work that you've done during your time at UMass. And it's really humbling to be here, and I can't really think of a better way to spend my Thursday night than with you all. I think the last time I was at UMass and had spoken with CMASS, I also got emotional, Vera. So I feel you, I understand you, and I see you. So this family is just amazing to me. Every time I think about my time at CMASS, it was literally my home away from home. I remember going through hard times with my girls who I got on the call today, and we had to sleep a few nights at the YKCC, and the staff was just super supportive. I got the flu once, the first time getting sick away from home. I was like, I didn't have my mom, I didn't have my dad. I called Chona, she wasn't able to make it. She called Ophelia. Ophelia came to the health center within 10 minutes, picked me up, drove me home, made sure I had food. It was just then that I was like, I'm never leaving. I'm staying under their wings forever. But eventually they kicked me out of the nest and made me fly. But that was a good thing too. So ever since then, I remember being involved in every single event, even at the Amazing Race, even though I hated the idea of running around campus and chasing after clues and having to figure them out. And but it was such a great experience. I even somehow wheedled my way into working as an admin assistant at CMASS. That's how much I loved it. I was like, I want to work with this team and I want to be here forever. And being a part of YKCC, and I know it's no longer a center there now, and it's sad, but just being a part of that legacy and the work that you've all done had really boosted my confidence in having and engaging in not only challenging dialogue, but being opening to listening to different perspectives and having those conversations and making myself vulnerable and being able to share those experiences and just having genuine connections with people. And that's not only helped with my personal life and, coming across everyone with just kindness and empathy, but it's helped in my professional life, being a woman of color in a tech space and figuring out, how do I navigate this? How do I connect with people who I don't always understand or have similar backgrounds? How do I work with them? So I credit CMASS so much for the work that you've all done in helping me not only shape my perspective as an adult and as a woman of color, but helping me figure out, where do I stand in my community? Where is my voice? Where can I continue amplifying for people who need amplification and continue just being involved in CMASS and the work that you have all done to continue this legacy. And I wanted to keep it short because I know Willie's like, oh, time. And we're getting on around 8 o'clock. So I want to make sure everyone gets their dinner as well, right? But thank you so much. It's been such a humbling experience to hear everyone, especially from John Bracy. I think this might be the third time that I've heard you talk, and it's still mind blowing. I'm still so entertained and engaged, and it's just so great. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Mary, for your words and your expression of just your experience, and that's what we want students to walk away with, right? we are a family. We are together. And once you're involved in CMASS, you're always a part of that family. And as also, all our founding programs, we continue to be a family together. So now, I know it's kind of getting to that time, but we still have until like 8:30. Now, we want to give you an opportunity to kind of get together in a little bit of more intimate environment. We're going to go to our breakout rooms that you had signed up for. And this is your opportunity to kind of get to know each other a little bit better, ask some questions, share ideas and thoughts, because we want to hear from you. We want to know what you see the future being for CMASS as well, because we want to make sure that we are attentive and listening to our students and our alumni, and making sure that people have a great experience. So I'll turn it over to Melanie to be able to push us out into our breakout rooms. And you have, and you also have some facilitators in those breakout rooms that will push along the conversation. Facilitators will identify a person to document the dialogues that is going on in the breakout rooms, and then come back and share that out and put it in the chat.
Willie made it back safely. That's good.
Hey, Willie.
I'm back. I'm hoping that everyone had some engaging conversation. You've been able to network and communicate with the people in your room. I understand that we had some technical difficulties with the room assignments, but things happen.
Can I say something, Willie?
Yeah.
You said we should rip off what you call this. We should document we should document our conversations, our narrative that took place in the break room. Ours was kind of fun, and then it was reflective, but then it became serious. And so I don't think I can put everything in the chat room. So I think the recording will tell you what it was. Was the break room recorded?
I don't believe so.
No.
The break, unfortunately, it doesn't have capability to record the breakout rooms. So all of the breakout activity is just within the group. So unfortunately, there's no recording of that.
Hi, can I say something really quickly as something just to have this be part of the recording? So I'm a former YKCC staff, and I want this message it's on the behalf of the former JWCC staff. They said that none of the Native students from JWCC who worked at the cultural centers in the spring were hired back for this year. Just for the record.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lily. So I know it's getting late, so we're gonna kind of move on, and we're gonna have what is it? Oh, yes, we're gonna move on with Karen to kind of give us a quick review of the Alumni People Grove presentation. And then after that, we will close with Chief of Staff Officer of the Chancellor's Office, Rolanda Burney.
Yay.
The conversation, please go to our new online community called Connect Umass. You can go to connectumassalumni.com to join. Students can use their net ID to log in. Alumni and faculty and staff can use their email to log in, create an account, and then we have discussion boards in there. There's groups in there. There's job posting is in there, events. So there's a lot of different features. You can connect with alumni to get career advice, or just to network and to continue the conversation. So we're hoping that you'll take us up on the offer of joining us in a virtual space and continuing some of the conversations maybe that you started today. So for instance, you could go on the discussion board and start some of the conversations that you started today that you want to explore a little bit more and get some people talking online. So we hope that you'll join us.
All right, thank you, Karen. And so now we will have closing remarks and Chief of Staff, Chancellor's Office, Rolanda Burney.
Thank you. So earlier today, I had an opportunity to watch the CMASS video overview online, and I was immediately struck by the evidence of community responsibility inherent in the efforts of faculty, staff, and students of color from 1967 until now. It is reminiscent of the national call for predominantly white institutions to better recruit, retain, support, and mentor students of color. I was struck also by the indefatigable spirit of social justice that seems hereditary to UMass Amherst students. It is compassion that makes us want to share our gifts and experiences, our cultures and capacities with the world at large. We see the lack, and with generosity and grace, willingly offer to fill those holes. And so for me, this evening's celebration is affirmation of how successfully, if not painstakingly, you have filled the hole. Through advocacy and programming, informed participation in both the administration and societal processes, CMASS in its current incarnation, and the Committee for Collegiate Education of Black and other minority students before it, has paved the way for students of color to cultivate place and space at UMass Amherst. Our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion is both informed by and bolstered by CMASS. Our Office of Equity and Inclusion, led by Dr. Nefertiti Walker, is undertaking initiatives to provide UMass staff and students with resources for professional development, networking, mentorship, and also recruit, retain, and advance employees who are underrepresented in our community. We have 5 new resource groups: Faculty and Staff of Color Network, the International Faculty and Staff Network, the LGBTQIA+ Network, Allies for Illness and Disability and Access, and Veterans Network. And NEF is doing things like hosting a Spotify podcast called Daria, Dignity and Respect in Action, where we recently featured 5 members of the UMass Undergraduate Racial Justice Coalition. This decennial celebration of CMASS is unfortunately occurring during a syndemic, the likes of which our collective communities have never experienced. It is impacting us all personally and professionally, and our UMass community has not been spared. This summer, the coupling of strife with racial unrest, socio-political unrest, and a pandemic spurred student advocacy in the form of the Racial Justice Coalition and UMass for Black Lives. Together, they have charged the administration to cultivate a transparent and accountable system for measurable action steps to create a sustainable campus climate which accommodates the students of tomorrow. Together, we are engaging in collaborative and consultative meetings to address our most immediate needs, as expressed through the voices and experiences of students. We are developing long-term solutions and are excited about these new initiatives and consultative bodies. While acknowledging that our community is far from perfect, the Chancellor remains committed to striving to be better and fostering a community that is grounded in the concept of dignity and respect for all. CMASS, its legacy, and its progeny is an integral part of that commitment. So as we look to the future in anticipation of CMASS's continued success and our collective efforts to build a better world, I leave you with the inspirational words of that very famous poet, Kendrick Lamar: "We gonna be all right." At this time, our program concludes. So after Willie hits the button, please go to the alumni page to create your profile in UMass Connect. Thank you for joining us, and please stay safe.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.